align your values with the life that you're living, you do love yourself more. It kind of raises you up. You feel that, oh, I'm doing what I'm kind of put on this earth to do, and that like really fuels you every day. So that's where we are. That's where we need to go. And I have complete faith in every soul on this earth that we can, and that they can help us. And humanity is a gift. It's not a curse. I don't like people often say, oh, we're a plague on this earth and we're just depleting everything. And I don't think that's true. We are nature, humans too, as much as the tree you see outside, as much as the birds in the air. We are all part of this system. And so we all have a role to play. And it's about finding in your heart what your role might be.
Oh, my heart is melting. I'm so full. And I loved what you said there about self-love. And it's been a journey for you. You know, you didn't just all of a sudden, wake up one day and go, I know, I want to be an environmentalist. It is a bit of a process. And it definitely has been the same for me. And if you'd have told me 9 years ago that I would be talking about, global climate change, it would not have resonated because I was so focused on what outfit am I wearing to the nightclub tonight? And that's okay. Like, that was my world at the time, and that's what I had to experience. And as I started my business and I started to become more aware of products and the environment, I started to shift slowly. And I started to see, okay, other people are doing things for the environment. Isn't that nice for them? I haven't got time for that. If someone said, do you want to come and volunteer and pick up, plastic from the ocean, I would have been too busy, had too many things on. And then as I started to really step into self-love and be fully connected with myself, I started to care a lot more. And so for me, it was saying a hell no to the plastic straw. And then it was absolutely everywhere taking my bottle. And then it's just progressed and progressed to the point now where I was in a restaurant in Uluwatu, and I had to get some food to take away. And they were going to give me some plastic knives and forks. And I was like, no plastic knives and forks. Have you got any like wooden ones or anything? They were like, no. And I was like, I'll just eat with my fingers. So I sat on the beach eating my chicken breast, sweet potatoes, vegetables, just like pure cave woman. And it felt so good to me. And I was like, this feels really, really good. And this is only because I love myself, because all of my needs have been met. I'm not being selfish. I'm now thinking about the collective. And that is the journey that I'm on. And what I'm passionate about with this podcast is helping people to come back home to themselves, to really dig deep. And we are all one at the end of the day. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this and you still use single-use plastic and you're not recycling, like, don't beat yourself up. This is obviously coming to your awareness for a reason. And I can remember actually when I was making a vision board maybe 5 years ago, I put this recycling picture on the vision board because I wanted to be a good human. But inside I was like, I still want to buy the shoes. But it looks good to have it on there. It looks good to recycle. And then I started to do it a little bit, and then it just became this like overwhelming, like it started to take over me. And I'm on a mission to make recycling sexy,
Yeah, I think you're doing well at that. And Kim, I'm so glad that you said, it's okay if you're not where I'm at on this journey. And I look at, especially some of these green school students, and I'm like, they're light years ahead of me in terms of their everyday, day in and day out work. And yeah, I want to get there, but I think we also have to have compassion along the way, because it's so easy to be in judgment when you're in this space, to look at the person who's carrying 5 plastic shopping bags full of styrofoam takeaway containers as they leave a restaurant and just be like, want to rail and kind of be like, what are you doing? But that's not going to get through to them. I've even had friends who will be making early on, they would like buy fast fashion, or they would be using plastic, and I would be like, Because they're my friends and I felt comfortable. I'd be like, this isn't great. Could you do something else? And they never took it in. They were always defensive. And of course they were. And by the way, so was I. I have a younger sister who has been doing this work long before me. And, in terms of being a more ethical consumer and aware of, problems in the world and what we can do. And she would bring it up to me and I couldn't take it in from her because I just felt judged. And so we can't come at it from a place of judgment. We have to have compassion and we have to just love on each other. And by the way, recently I was in Chicago and my girlfriend had a baby shower and she had compostable plates. She had reusable cups with reusable straws for everybody that they could take home with them instead of plastic cups for having our mimosas. And she was like, Bonnie, look what I have here. Aren't you proud of me? And I was like, yes, I love this. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And whether she did it for me or not, it just was an example of how just me living in this truth of mine has bled out into my circle of friends. And that just happens, and it's true with my sister. Her work bled out into me, and made me want to pursue this even more passionately. And now it's extended through our entire family. And so you will have an impact. You don't have to be in judgment of other people, and actually sitting in compassion and I think in love and connection is much more effective.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, because when I was on the beach yesterday, everyone had coconuts with plastic straws in. And I was just like, I felt like saying, do you know? And I was sat there trying to get the coconut in my mouth, dripping it all down my body because I just refused the plastic straw. And so thank you for that reminder to learn from love and just be that inspiration. And I think this is a message for everyone in any situation, is just being the light, standing in your truth, being the example that you want other people to be, and they will start to maybe embody that, or maybe not. And that's the best
Absolutely.
way to make a change.
And who knows, maybe someone saw you struggling with your coconut on the beach and thought, gosh, she is committed. I respect that. And you know what? Tomorrow, I'm not going to get this straw. It makes me feel like crap drinking from this straw. So I'm not going to get it tomorrow. You don't know. You could be having that impact on people without even realizing it, just by making the decisions that feel aligned for you.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny actually. I know I've turned a corner, because I had this envelope in my room that I was saving all of my like fizz stick wrappers in, my Arbonne fizz stick wrappers, and I was going to take them home to England and like properly send them to TerraCycle and everything. And then I come back in the room and the cleaner had like, I thought she'd put them in the bin. I was like, oh my god, gosh, like I've been saving all these wrappers for the past week. Where? And luckily she put them somewhere else, and I was just like, oh my god. I was willing to take all of my hard to recycle items back to England to recycle them, and I was
Uh,
like, this is commitment.
that is commitment in the best way. I love it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you've got a podcast called 101 Ways to Change the
Save the
World,
planet.
Save the Planet. Okay, so what are your favorite like top 10?
Oh, that's a great question. And yeah, just a little real brief background on this is, again, continuing the storytelling in my life, but really we wanted to bring people on who were doing environmental work in all different areas, so that the people listening, if they're not a farmer, they could look to ethical fashion, or if they're into travel, we have lots of episodes on travel because I'm really connected in the travel space. They could learn how to travel more sustainably. So it's just like finding what resonates with your own life. And so favorites. Whew. I think actually one of my absolute favorites is speaking to Steve Nygren, who is the founder of this community called Serenbe in Atlanta, or just outside of Atlanta, I should say. And I was actually there when I spoke with you when we had our first Zoom call. Um, and it's this reimagining of what a suburb could look like in the United States. It's actually based on English hamlets, and the idea is actually it's the plot of land marked to be developed for this community Steve is committed to only developing 30% of it and leaving 70% just natural and for the wild. And so what that means is it brings the people in this community closer together so that there's more connection. I mean, it's the South, so everyone has porches, but also the houses are closer together. So people are sitting on their porches, their neighbors are walking down the street, they're having a chat. There's, instead of having a mailbox at every single individual home, which by the way ups the carbon footprint for the mailman because he has to just drive and stop and drive and stop, drive and stop, versus if he just went to one place or one or two places where everybody's mailbox is. So that's how they have it in Serenbe. And so because of that, yes, you have the lower carbon footprint for the mailman, but also you have this place where all these natural collisions happen with your neighbors, where you're going to get the mail and everyone else is going there to get their mail. So they bump into each other and they say hi and they know about each other's lives. And so they're brought together in these ways. And there's little ways that Steve intentionally designed this space to make that happen throughout, that create more connection and more love within this community. And that, like, again, it's just this, like, you feel the vibes there. It's completely so elevated, and the people just knowing each other and looking out for each other. It's so beautiful. So that's one place. And also, by the way, that Serenbe was built on biophilic design principles. And this is something in architecture and design. Actually, Green School is built using biophilic design principles. And what biophilia means is it's just connecting, it's being existing in a space, in a built space that was intentionally designed to connect you with the natural world, to connect occupants of the natural world, and effortlessly. So it's not about bringing a bunch of potted plants into a room. It's about how do we design the space so that the light, so the airflow, so the plants all kind of grow with the building. So you're constantly connected to nature. And that, biophilic design it's something that a lot of cities, urban centers are looking to incorporate in the future because they act as carbon sinks. You see this in Singapore. There's all these high rises that are just covered in plants. And those plants draw carbon out of the atmosphere. So that's wonderful. But they also trap heat. So urban centers that can be heat islands often can become cooler. And so imagine a future urban city where you're just looking around and there's, instead of giant metal glinting skyscrapers that are reflecting heat, you're seeing beautiful, almost like giant trees soaring into the sky, and plants and flowers, and you're hearing birds, and you're smelling the beautiful plants that are on these buildings. And so that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I like to think about when I'm trying to vision the world that I want. And so, yeah, so we talked to Dr. Phil Tabb. He's one of the experts in biophilic design. I'm actually working on a story about biophilic design in hospitality and hotels for a magazine called Artful Living. So keep an eye out for that. But that one is a really beautiful one. We talked to, of all things, one of our earliest conversations was with a woman who is designing regenerative highways. And so, we think about the future of transportation. Well, yes, we want high-speed rail, and we want, if we can, zero carbon flight. But the fact is we have all of these highways. We have all this highway infrastructure everywhere in the world because cars were what we decided to go with way back when. We're like, this is going to be the way that we get ourselves around. And so how can we use those roads? So she's doing things like turning actual roads into solar panels so that the roads themselves are becoming renewable energy sources, planting pollinator gardens along highways and wildflower gardens along highways to make the driving experience more wonderful, but also to grow food and plants. So food that can go to communities in need, and then plants that will act again as carbon sinks and also help bee populations. And I mean, so many things, like roads that actually charge electric vehicles just as you're driving along them. So you don't actually need to go and stop and charge your car, but they also are on this regenerative highway prototype that they have. They also have sort of the gas station of the future, although it's not gas, obviously it's electric chargers and more healthy food available in the stop on the highway. And if you can imagine, like, that's just another kind of one little thing that a lot of us do every day, drive on a highway. And she's reimagining how this could be more in harmony with nature. And that's really cool because that's something we all have that, well, many of us have that lived experience of traveling on a highway, and we can start to then also imagine, okay, well, what would that be like? Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, those are a few. I could go on and on and on, but I mean, there's one about chocolate. Um, yeah, saving the planet with chocolate. We talked to Mike Forbes, who's the CEO of Alter Eco, which is an amazing chocolate company, but they use regenerative agriculture and agroforestry to grow their chocolate, and they support communities in South America, so that the benefits of their business extend far beyond just the farmers growing their chocolate, but well into the communities where that money is going. And that's a really cool episode because I love chocolate. But anyway, there's so many 101 ways to save the planet. It's on Spotify. But yeah,
Wow.
I've really loved doing that.
Mm. I am going to be binge listening to all of those things. I really do get this sense of harmony with the planet because people really are connected to themselves. And I think ultimately, like you said, the more connected you become to yourself, the more you realize we are all one and we're living on this planet. So I think it's just a perfect combination of, the work that you're doing with the environment, and then, the soul digger, someone who's on a journey to discover who they are, get connected to themselves. And that's why I just felt such alignment with this podcast, because it just is so aligned and synchronistic.
Yeah, I love the work that you do on this podcast. I think it's so incredibly important. In fact, I would tell people, start with Soul Digger and find out what's in your soul. Then come over to my podcast and find out where, which one of these ways to save the planet aligns with that soul of yours, that beautiful soul of yours.
Wow. And so have you got like 3 tips that maybe people can implement straight away to just make some changes to their day-to-day sustainability?
Sure. I think one that I always start with is meditation. And that might seem odd, but slowing down, being present, not only does meditation help you align with your soul, help you, increase self-love, simply by giving yourself the time to listen to what's in yourself and your heart, but it also slows us down because a lot of this work is about intentionality. It's about not choosing the convenient route, but choosing to eat that chicken breast with your fingers, which, might be a little messier, but you're doing it because it feels better for your soul. And so to make that decision versus the convenient one, which is available to us all the time, because that's how our world was built, we need to pause. And I think starting the day, beginning your day with a little meditation, pausing, reconnecting with that intention in your heart is a really powerful first step. So that's one. Uh, Two is get educated. I think, like we said, you need to know point A, where we are right now. Some books that I really love, I know I mentioned The Future We Choose. Also, Project Drawdown is a comprehensive, well, Project Drawdown is actually a nonprofit organization. They have a book called Drawdown, and it's a comprehensive plan to draw the carbon out of the atmosphere needed to sustain our planet into the future and to stop global warming. It's the only comprehensive plan like that exists, that accounts for every part of the world, that has looked at all of the available technology and keyword available, it's available today to implement. It's not something some technology we have yet to invent. And it puts all of that technology together and says, okay, if we do all these things, we'll get there. And so that's a really hopeful read for me. It's kind of a big book, but I like to just open it sometimes, and it's very visual, and just look at, okay, like this would be cool if we did this. And then a huge one of the biggest ways that we can impact the health of our planet is by the food that we choose to eat. And a lot of people think you have to be vegan to be, eco-conscious in your diet, and that's not necessarily true. But learn about regenerative agriculture. It's a way that, right now we deplete our soil with traditional and industrial farming, especially in the use of inputs like nitrates to spur growth. It's rather than drawing carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it in the soil, which naturally improves growth. It's something that kind of blew my mind when I was watching the documentary Kiss the Ground on Netflix, was that glyphosate is actually a derivative of the poison they used in uh, the Holocaust in these work camps when they were gassing people. Okay, so that is the same technology that was then repurposed to input into our soil in order to improve yields for agriculture, which worked for a long time, but now we're seeing fewer and fewer yields, more and more and more glyphosate, and then the health impacts of glyphosate in our bodies are just disgusting to think about. So I think the more that we can choose organic, locally sourced, and regeneratively sourced products, the better. There's lots of farms that are turning to regenerative agriculture now. So if you are a meat eater, there are those options. If not, then I think limiting your meat is a good practice to have. But you don't have to go full vegan. I think that you know, if you're unwilling to do that, just know that there are other options out there. So those are my 3 tips: getting educated, regenerative, supporting regenerative and organic agriculture, and taking time to meditate and live each day with a little bit more of intentionality.
Mm, fascinating. It's fascinating how you didn't mention, you know, stop using plastic, because essentially that will happen when you're doing all of the things. You get into the root cause. It's like the underneath of it all, yeah, you can say no to plastic, but ultimately the meditation and the really getting deep into, like, where's my food sourced from, what's going into my, my brain, and how am I starting my day, is fundamental.
Yeah, it's what are those underlying things that are going to spill into other moments of change in the way we live.